Hey everybody, good evening and welcome to the Captain Lou Extravaganza, live here on 12 Ounce Sports Radio and 12 Ounce Sports TV. Good evening everybody, Captain Lou here with you in the chair. Welcome aboard for the next couple of hours as we've got a great show planned for you here tonight. Should be a lot of fun. We've got some big guests lined up. As I promised last week, we're going to start back up with our ACHA Hockey Talk, and we've got a couple of big guests lined up. Two teams that went to the national tournament last year in Dallas, and that will be Tyler Kangas, the head coach of the University of Cincinnati, their D2 squad, and also Chris Fredrickson from the University of Marian University, in they're just outside of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So it should be a great night. Great night for guests. And also coming up at 9:15 tonight will be Paul Shivari. We're going to have one last look at the end of the Major League Baseball season, as when we went off the air last week at 10 o'clock Eastern time, it was a 2-2 tie, and it was anybody's game. Houston, all they had to do is win one of the last two, and they clinched that World Series championship. But as we all know by now, it was not to be, as the Washington Nationals are the 2019 World Series champions, and I want everybody to raise their hand and say that they actually picked that at the beginning of the year, or even when the World Series started. You can call it Team of Destiny. You can say it's not all that or whatever, but indeed, Washington, they were the team of destiny. So we're going to talk with Paul Shivari approximately 9:15 Eastern time here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Welcome aboard, everybody. As I mentioned, tonight's show brought to you as always by Seat Giant, and you can check out Seat Giant on our website. Just go to 12ouncesportsradio.com, hit the events ticket tab, and they're the reminder that Seat Giant is your premier ticket buying website. No matter what seats you might be after, Seat Giant will get you the right seats at the right price. And all you have to do, too, is enter the promo code 12ouncesports, and you'll save money on your purchase. That is SeatGiant.com, a longtime sponsor here of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. And also, we are sponsored tonight by 12-ounce, or Best Bud CBD, rather. Check them out on their website, and the easiest way to do it is to go to 12ouncesportsradio.com and then hit /CBD. It'll take you right to their website. Or you can check out, again, our website. Go to the tab on top that says 12-ounce CBD products, and that will get you, again, to their website. Some great ideas. It's an up-and-coming product that I, highly recommend, for the aches and pains, you name it, if you're recovering from an injury or whatnot. And it's a safe way to go. So I highly recommend you check them out. So again, big show planned tonight as well. The first college football poll will be out. The playoff poll is going to be out. It's not going to come out until probably 9:15 tonight. And so after our conversation with Paul Shivari tonight, we will give you the top four as predicted by, or as presented on ESPN. They're going to do it tonight in between the Champions Classic games, which you've got the top four teams playing tonight. Kansas and Duke are playing right now, and I believe Kansas was up 5 last I checked. And see if I can get an update on it. Actually, Duke is up 3 at halftime. And then at approximately 9:30 or so, it's going to be number 1 Michigan State against number 2 Kentucky. That ought to be a dandy. Great games at the beginning of the year. And as funny as I listened to an interview with Tom Izzo at his presser earlier, it was either yesterday or the day before, and someone asked him how much stock he took into these games at the beginning every year, as opposed to maybe in March. He said, if we win, I take all the stock in the world in it. If we don't, I take none. But seriously, he said, you can't rest on your laurels, and he said that it's more fun for us in the media maybe than and also the fans than him. But, what a great experience for the kids to get to play at Madison Square Garden. Even though, and I've said it throughout the last, the the 2 years that I've done this particular show and the shows that I've done before that, I just don't see, maybe back in the day, the Madison Square Garden was the mecca for college basketball and pro basketball, but I'm not going to get into what I think of the New York basketball market right now, because it's almost as bad, if not worse, than their pro football market right now, with their two teams pretty much on the bottom of the barrel. So there you go. There's some 2 great games there, though, tonight. It is very historical building and a great chance for, a lot of the players to be able to check that out. So again, we will hear the top 4 of the playoff rankings in between those shows, or between those games rather. So we will pick those up at the end of our interview with Paul Shafari, coming up at 9:15. So again, a great show planned for you. We will have our latest Captain Lou 6-pack challenge tonight. I had one of my better weeks last week, 5-1. Can you believe that? And it was almost a perfect week for me. I had Seattle minus 6.5, and they beat Tampa by 6. Or that would have been a clean sweep for me. So the good news for me is that I'm above zero, or above the Mendoza line, I should say. 31 up, 21 down, or 29 down after 10 weeks of picking college and pro. The bad news is for you that nobody beat me last week. So the best was 5-1. So you have to beat me. Ties don't count in this one. This isn't like hockey. You got to beat me. There's no shootouts. So nobody beat me this week, but there's still, I think I've got around 74 people are signed up to win that $100 Visa gift card. They're in the running, rather. So again, how it works, beat me on my picks later on tonight. I will give you those picks. 3 college, 3 pros against the spread. The spread, by the way, courtesy of mybookie.ag, one of our sponsors here on 12 Ounce Sports Radio. Hit the promo code 12 Ounce Sports and you'll get 100% bonus up to $1,000 on your first bonus with mybookie.ag. But they are our sponsors here. That's where we get our lines from. And so we got some big games coming up in 3 against the pro, 3 against college. Big college weekend for football. Obviously, the Associated Press number 1, number 2 game, which is LSU and Alabama. The number 1 question right now in that game is Tua going to play? He went through practice yesterday, and according to Nick Saban, he said that if there isn't any setbacks, if he's healthy, he's going to play. It's a big game for them. I'll tell you, it's crazy. We talked about this last week. I'll bring it up again as far as the college football playoffs. Real interested to see who the top 4 are going to be. Is Penn State going to get in at number 4? Or is it going to be Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and LSU? Pretty cut and dry the top 5 teams are. That 4th and 5th spot, my gut feeling is it's going to be Clemson at number 4. They're undefeated. Everybody's going to rip on their schedule. I have as well. They really, that ACC conference, man, it's bad. And I think that's what's going to stop the Pac-12 from getting a 1-loss team in, because, they're just, it's not very good out there as well. Could there be 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams? We talked about this last week. Penn State has got a big game against Minnesota, the Golden Gophers. Both teams undefeated, by the way. And it's a great feel-good story for Minnesota. But now this is where we'll really see what they're made of. Could they possibly have a chance to crack the championship pool? Minnesota's going to have to win out. And should they beat Penn State, Wisconsin, Iowa, and then win their last game, I can't remember who it was, one of the softies in the Big Ten West, then they would more than likely play Ohio State in the or Penn State in the championship game. If they ran the gauntlet and went to 13-0, I don't see why they would not be in the playoff. So that they would be one of the remaining undefeated teams. But that would be crazy if that happened. I would love to see it, but that's going to be interesting. So we'll talk more about those games as well later on tonight. Again, we've got some great guests. Really interested to talk to Tyler Kangas and also Chris Fredrickson, both those teams last year went to the national tournament, and they did rather well. Cincinnati went to the Final Four in Division II, and they went up against the two, which now is the two-time national defending champions in Florida Gulf Coast, and it was just a 1-goal difference in that game. So, and again, along with that, Tyler was one of the assistant coaches on the ACHA select team that went over to Russia back at the beginning of October. So love to get his comments on that. We'll talk about that tonight. And Chris Fredrickson, Marian University is putting together another solid start to the season. 9-0. I think they've got one overtime loss, and that was to Sioux Canada, the defending Division III champions. So it's going to be interesting to talk with Chris on that. Chris Fredrickson, friend of the show. We've had him on before. And again, with Paul Chavari, a lot of big names are going to be on the free agent market in baseball. We talked about the World Series a little bit at the top of the show. But there's going to be some movement. As Steven Strasburg already said that he is opting out. He's going to go to the free agent market. Is he going to command $35 million a year? And one of the questions I'm going to ask Paul is, are the teams going to go out and sign him or offer him a long-term deal? 8 years, 7 years. I mean, you look at some of these contracts, and we've talked about it before. The latest one with Bryce Harper, 13 years at $390 million or $60 million or whatever it was. Are teams going to do that? Are they going to shy away from that? I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I could see both sides of it for the player as far as wanting to and not wanting to. But I think Strasburg's at the age now where I think he might want a long-term deal. Hey, if you can get the guaranteed money, why not? 10 years. But is he going to go for $40 million? I would say that he's more probably going to get 30 to 35. But, hey, the way the market is right now, it's anybody's guess. The money is just absolutely insane. But we've talked about it. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. But, hey, if they couldn't afford to do it, they wouldn't do it. And I know the fans aren't in the stands like they'd like to be, but when you get the networks paying this ridiculous amount of money for rights fees and whatnot, and these teams are getting $1 billion a year to cover that, then they've got to be making money, or they wouldn't be paying these ultimately. So we'll talk to Paul about that in the second hour. So again, big show lined up for us tonight. It's that time of year, exciting time of year for me. Hockey's really starting to kick into gear at the ACHA level. Some big individual tournaments coming up, and the Nationals talk is already beginning. I had a chance to chat with the director of the broadcasting end of it for the Nationals in Dallas last week, and it was we're fired up for it. It's going to be bigger and better than ever. But right now, let's go to our guest line. And on the other end of our line is the head coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats, Tyler Kangas. Tyler, thanks for coming back on the show. How's everything going with you?
Everything's going great. Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Hey, let's get in right into it. Tyler, before the season started, the regular season, you had the opportunity to go over to Russia with the D2 select team. And I've had a chance to talk with Kyle Truax from Aquinas about the experience. Tell us a little bit from your perspective. How was the trip? Did you enjoy it? Was it a lot of fun, a lot of work? Tell us a little bit about it.
It was first class all the way. It's one of those trips that's a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But I've always been sort of engulfed by the Soviet style of life and hockey and that when I watched the Summit Series back in like 1972.
Oh, of course.
You know, so now at this particular juncture in our life and getting the opportunity to go over there and actually putting a pair of skates on and skating the former Soviet Union was that was just like the wildest dream you could ever have. So to me, that was taking me back to my youthful days. It was a first-class trip, superly run organization, and the event's high quality hockey, as you can imagine.
Oh, I'm sure. Speaking of the style of hockey, touch on that a little bit. What kind of style of hockey did you run in over there? That's always a question that a lot of people ask me to ask you guys. Was it a rougher style? Was it quick? Tell us a little bit about what you guys ran into as far as the style of play that they had.
Well, Fred and the coaching, Freddie was the head coach from Northeastern. Wanted to put together a team that had speed, speed and skill. And that's what you see over there. It's all just speed and skill. Physically, as you can imagine, it was not quite as physical as a North American style game. But time and space, you had to be very cautious of it, bigger ice surface. Mm-hmm. The puck possession was huge. You didn't want to get running around chasing guys. And it was almost basically we had to play with a tremendous amount of patience where, in North America, you just go as hard as you can for 30 seconds, and just chase everybody around. Over there, you had to watch your angles. You couldn't, gapping up in the neutral zone was a little more difficult. Because you wanted to chase the guy instinctively really wide, realizing that he was another 10 feet away from you. Mm-hmm. So angles for the goalies were a little different, so they, with the bigger ice surface, and a lot more play behind the net. So, that was interesting because you got another 1.5 or 2 feet behind the net. So they like to work it low, right, so that you can keep getting mesmerized by the puck and start staring at it, and then they pick somebody backdoor that you don't even see. So it was patience and head on a swivel, but super fast paced, quick.
We're joined by Tyler Kangas, the head coach of the University of Cincinnati Bearcats from the ACHA Division II, talking about the trip to Russia, and also wanted to touch a little bit. Before we get to this season, one more question on that. One thing that you might have took away from off the ice that you might have learned over there, or something that really fascinated you with the whole trip?
Well, it's interesting. I told like a few of the players, and then I told my wife and family when I got back here, is that there's an interesting paradigm going on over there. You have the younger generation that has basically lived free, mm-hmm. and have no idea of the sort of communist rule. They understand and probably read about it. And then you have the old guard that don't really know how to handle all this freedom.
Wow.
So you've got them on the two different sides of the spectrum. You've got these kids that, for all intents and purposes, like you're a teenage kid here in North America, but, mm-hmm. But certainly not all the liberties. And the older group is just like, where was this? Or I don't like it. Or so there's like two different societies going on over there.
Well, it sounds like it was just a fabulous trip, a once in a lifetime experience for you and the kids. So it's I'm happy that you were able to be a part of that, and I'm sure that's something that you'll take with you the rest of your life.
Oh, without question, it was a great time.
Now, real quick, I wanted to touch on last year's national tournament. You guys had a great showing. I mean, you went right down pretty much to the wire against a very, very tough Florida Gulf Coast team. Talk a little bit about that, if you would, Tyler. I know it was just a good run by you guys to get to the Final Four in Division II.
Yeah, it was an interesting run to watch. It was more or less, as a coach's perspective, just kind of stay out of the way. They were executing stuff that we'd worked on all year, and it was finally coming together. But more importantly, it was their hearts grew double. I mean, they just laid it out on the line, and it was becoming less and less of X's and O's, and they just beating Lindenwood in that first round game in the pool play was probably the biggest win for the program. There's been big wins, but that was one that if we won this one, maybe we have a chance to move on to the next round.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it happened, from there, the momentum, the kids took over on their own.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was really fun to watch. And yeah, we lost, I think, 4-3 or 3-2 to Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah, it was a 3-2 game in that semifinal game. But did you take it now coming into this year? Do you take anything from that run to kind of motivate your players this year, or do you just start fresh? How do you approach this year, knowing that you've made it? You know what it's like to get there.
Well, that's the one big piece is that until you get there, you don't know what it takes to get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to the Stanley Cup final. So now the kids know the kind of effort and the sort of mindset they need to get there. But I didn't do anything different. The boys have just taken on the attitude that there's just some unfinished business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that they're all rallying themselves, and I'm doing just the maestro. That's all I'm doing. It's basically them, and they know what they want to do, and they came into it this year that they want to get back.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great thing to have when you can just be the maestro when you've got a good group of kids. I see you're led again this year by Danny Matea and Brandon Armstrong are your top 2 goal scorers, 24 or point scorers rather, 24 and 22 respectively. Brandon with 6 power play goals. Nice start to the year for those guys, but also a good start for your team as a whole as well.
Yeah, the team's off to a good start. We've infused 9 new freshmen into the lineup, and so they're having, there's some chemistry issues and that, but overall, I think they're doing real well with it. And Danny and Brandon were over there in Russia, so they had a jump start on everybody else. So it's not surprising that they're at the top of the pack right now.
Was it much of an adjustment for those guys, Tyler, to jump into your American schedule here as opposed when they got from Russia? Was there any, for lack of a better word, any sea legs or anything like that?
Well, it's interesting you would say that because when I returned, I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know where I was going. I had like the longest Monday of my life. So we got back into town. They took Tuesday night off. I hadn't been with the team now in 2 weeks because we basically shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was just kind of catching up to see where we were. And then 2 days later, we're on the road up to Michigan. We played Grand Valley and Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
And on the Saturday when we played Michigan State, both Danny and Army came to me and they said, "Coach, I can't go anymore." So I said, "Okay." I expected it because it caught up to them.
Oh, yeah.
Grand Valley, they did well, but that was more on adrenaline.
Mm.
And you knew it was eventually going to catch up to them because it took, with a 16-hour flight and all that travel and the hotels and all of that, it was, it takes its toll. And then now you're getting in the car and driving another 8 hours. It just, it catches up to you, and it did, and I expected it, and they had nothing left, So, but they enjoyed the pace of play over there, so they're like I said, a few weeks ahead of where the rest of the team is, just on the competitive aspect.
So is that something that they can? I don't know. This might be a dumb question, but that where they can show the other guys, or is it just like a lead by example thing to kind of, because it looks like you're starting to turn it around. A couple of big wins last weekend over Kentucky and Dayton, because you got the meteor schedule coming up here before the holidays. You got a big 4 games coming up with your crosstown shootout, and then you get to go down to Florida for a weekend.
Yeah, we had another rematch. So, yeah, I'm getting some guys back in the lineup. We weren't healthy. When we played against Toledo, 2 of our better players went out with concussion, and I've lost one of our top 3 defensemen, Logan, with a broken collarbone. Oof. So he won't be back. So we've been bitten by the injury bug here early. but it's real early in the season. We know it's a long ways to go.
Yeah.
And, we'll just piece it together each week. It's a different lineup. We find who's healthy, who's not, that kind of thing. I mean, everybody goes through it.
Sure.
It's a physical game, and everyone just has to push through it. So, but we're looking forward to heading down to Florida Gulf Coast. Our games are always close with them, but we just get never enough to push through. So that's why winning and getting to nationals last year changes the culture of the room. They know they can get there. They feel more like winners. So games like that, who knows? They may be able to push through.
Well, and the one I wanted to ask you on too is you've got a great. I love your schedule. You get to go down to Florida, then you're off for Thanksgiving, and then you get to go out to Las Vegas for a weekend for their showcase. And now, how hard is it going to be for the boys to keep it as a business trip, like going down to Florida Gulf Coast, and you're going out to Vegas about 2 or 3 weeks after that?
Right. The Florida Gulf Coast one, that'll definitely, that's all business. The one that's headed out to Vegas, there'll be some obvious distractions because we have the ice rink is in the hotel, which is in the casino.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So once we get there, it's sort of one-stop shopping. We don't need any ground transportation.
Oh, there you go.
So all of that's going to be, but these guys, they're focused on their own. There will be the distractions. Like when we were in St. Louis, we were like right across the street from the casino, so the guys never, wavered from the idea that they were out there to take care of business. And, the run they had going to nationals, I told them that, you're going to be on everybody's list every night. So you got to bring it.
Oh, sure.
So it doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing. We need to stay focused on the task at hand and then take it from there. But it was not a hard sell to ask the guys before our exam break if they wanted to take a weekend to go to
I'm sure not, and then I just look at your schedule and I love it. I talk with Aquinas' coach because I do their play-by-play, and you've got a difficult schedule, but I'll tell you, it's a lot better than playing teams that may not be as strong as you guys. And, maybe not that losing's ever a good thing, but if you play a solid game against some quality opponents, I see in January, you've got to go up to play Keene State and UMass and Northeastern. And then you've got Adrian coming to town. That is one quality lineup, Tyler. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. It's the strongest schedule we've ever had. But the schedule that we put together every year is basically left with the players come the end of the previous year. What kind of schedule, how many games we want to play. And the consensus was, let's go mano-a-mano. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, if you want a hard schedule, then we'll put it together. We'll mix it in with some trips to some places we've never been. And so they're excited about the schedule. It's we're going to be on the plane, 3 times this year. So So we go to Florida, Las Vegas, and Boston. So we basically have covered almost the triangle of the country.
Boy, that's a very exciting schedule for sure. Well, Tyler, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, and congratulations on a great season so far. Last question I wanted to ask you: if there's one thing that you've been with your team that you've seen so far that you think you might need to improve on to keep it going, to get back to nationals, what would that one thing be?
We just got to be a little faster. We're not as fast as we were last year.
Okay,
but other than that, we're in good shape. Depth, we're deeper than we were last year.
Wow, that's huge. Boy, that sure comes into play later on in the year, doesn't it?
Correct. When you get third and fourth line contribution, but we feel comfortable with all 4 lines.
Well, good. Well, Tyler, again, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the regular season. Good luck down in Florida and out in Vegas, and then on up to Boston in January and the rest of the season. And hopefully we can run into each other. I know it's a ways down the road, but hopefully we can run into each other again down in Dallas at the Nationals.
Absolutely, Lou. Thanks. Anytime. Just give me a call.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Tyler Kangas, the head coach of the University of Cincinnati Bearcats. I look at this schedule, and it's an age-old adage, and if you want to compare it to hockey terms, you've got, with basketball, Tom Izzo does a monstrous pre-Big Ten schedule. I mean, tonight it's obvious, they play in Kentucky and then they play Duke and whatnot. They're always in it in March. They're always in the tournament. What is it, like 23 years in a row that Michigan State's been in, or some ridiculous amount. But I look at this schedule by ACHA Division II standards, and if it's not one of the toughest, or if it's not the toughest, it's got to be one of them. I mean, they're going down to Gulf Coast. They've played Liberty already. They played UMass, a team that was, I believe they were in the finals last year against Florida Gulf Coast. And, then they go down. They played Lindenwood, who was a tournament team. Then they're going out to play Northern Arizona, who was a tournament team last year. Then they've got Keene State, UMass, and Northeastern. UMass and Northeastern, of course, were in the Final Four. They both played each other in that game in the first semifinal. I got to call that one, and man, that was a dynamite game. So my hat's off to Tyler Kangas. And the other thing, what I wanted to touch on was that great story that he told about the trip over to Russia, the off-ice story. And it's really interesting to hear him talk about the generations over there, the new as opposed to the old, where the new, that's all they've known is, the freedom, where the older folks, the older generation haven't. And that's a very good perspective. And also the on-ice perspective of the sheet that they play on. They play on the Olympic-sized rinks over there, which not everybody does over here. There's not a lot of the college rinks. I know Northern Michigan has one. Michigan State has one. They don't play on it. There's one in town here. I think their ACHA teams may play a couple of games a year on it, but I know like their NCAA team doesn't, because MUN's not Olympic size. But so much different strategy on that, the behind the net play especially, and that was a great point by head coach Tyler Kangas. So great interview. If you want to hear it again, it's available on our YouTube channel, and also we will have this on our it'll be downloaded to SoundCloud and iTunes within the next 48 hours. So I invite you to take a listen to that, as well as most of our shows here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. A reminder that we are live on Captain Lou TV. No, 12ouncesportsradio.com and also 12ouncesportsradio.com/TV. So if you want to see the video portion of the studio, for those of you that keep asking, yes, I know I'm a Michigan fan, but if you can't see it in the background, I've got my Michigan State jersey right over there. So, hey, trying to be as Switzerland as I can. That's hard. Everybody that knows me knows I'm a Michigan fan. So it's, it still is a lot of fun. So, want to thank Tyler again for joining us tonight here on the show. Great interview with Tyler Kangas. Still to come in about 12 minutes, we're going to have Chris Fredrickson from Marian University. They were national tournament participants as well from Wisconsin. They're from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, south of Green Bay. They're off to a great start. I think they're 9-0-1-1. So, I mean, it's pretty tough to beat that unless you're spotless with your record. But we'll talk to Chris, another friend of the show. They were in our neck of the woods last weekend over at Grand Valley. So we'll talk to Chris and see what's going on in his world with Marian, because, again, they're off to a great start. And as well, we will talk to Paul Shivari in the second hour, approximately 9:15, as we'll get the lowdown on the World Series. We're going to put the Major League Baseball season to rest, and we'll preview the Hot Stove League, which that's always a fun thing to chat about from time to time, just to see who might go where. Everybody can dream about improving their team and maybe getting back into contention, like my Detroit Tigers, for example. As they started out, I think through the first 18 games, they were 9-9, and I'll have to do the math, but what did Detroit end up with? 47 wins, so they went 36 and then 200 the rest of the way, or 115 or whatever. yeah, whatever it was, it's bad. And so I don't know. It's always fun to dream. And right now, if you're a Detroit sports fan, it is rough because the Red Wings, oh my God, 11 out of 12, the Wings have lost. Started out, 3-1? Now we're 3-12 or something like that. Or we're 2-0 and now it's bad. And, I love Jeff Blashill and love Steve Yzerman. I know the long term, the Red Wings are going to be fine, but this is rough. Detroit just can't put the puck in the net. They can't stop anything. It's bad. And, it's a tough time being a sports fan in Detroit. The Pistons are struggling 3-5. The injury bug with Griffin and Reggie Jackson being hurt. And it's just, I would dare to say, I don't know if there's a worse city for a fan base right now as far as having as worse luck as Detroit. I mean, Cleveland, their Indians at least were contenders. I just look Chicago, I guess, but it could be Chicago. They're right up there with us, although the Cubs, they were contending right up until the end, but the rest of their teams are kind of, spitting the bit right now. New York has got the Yankees, and that's it. The Mets, they faded. And what is up with the Yankees and the Jets? I thought about making that one of my Captain Lou six-pack challenge games, toilet bowl number 1 of the 2019 NFL season with the Jets and the Giants. But, I'm not going to pick a game like that. I want some teams that have got something to play for. And, that's what, my Lions, all I got to do is look at the Jets and the Giants, and then I can see that my Lions aren't that bad. But, oh, my gosh, Detroit couldn't. Their defense is just struggling. Oh, my Lord. They made Derek Carr look like, Joe Montana. Can't stop any. What worries me about the Lions, their pass defense, they've got Darius Slay, who is a Pro Bowler, and, getting rid of Quadre Diggs. I understand, he was starting to maybe slide a little bit, but wow, that's rough. So here I thought my Lions had something. They're going to have to go on a run. They've got some games that are winnable, and I still think, with the Bears, they've got to be one of the biggest disappointments of the year. Maybe Mitch Trubisky was fool's gold last year. Their defense can't carry him all the time. And the Lions go to Soldier Field this weekend to play the Bears. And that's a big game for both teams. You lose that game and your season's shot. I know there's a long shot for either one of those teams to make the playoffs. Detroit, I think, is now a 4% chance to make the playoffs. But if Detroit can go on a roll, I know my Pollyanna optimism is kicking in, but if they can go on a roll and get some wins by Thanksgiving, if they can get it to 7-5-1 or 8-4-1, that's what it's going to take, because they've got some big games left. Dallas is winnable at home. I'm still going to say it. Dallas gets the love because they're Dallas. They're Jerry's team, America's team, whatever you want to call it. But you know what? Who have they beaten? I mean, their schedule ranks right up there with the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. Dallas won against New York at New York. They won a road game, but beat somebody of relevance. And until they do, I still say they're playing in the worst division in all of football. The Eagles are going to catch them. I think the Eagles are starting to come around, and I can't wait for that rematch against Dallas. Dallas has got the talent. They just don't know how to win. And they haven't played anybody. The teams that they played with a good record, they've gotten beat. I mean, they got embarrassed by Green Bay. So, yeah, I'm waiting to see. The jury's still out for me on Dallas. And like I said, I know that I bang on them an awful lot, but prove it to me. Win a big game on the road. And this year, win a big game, a game against a team with a winning record, period. Because I was listening to Jack Del Rio on the radio this morning, And they asked him if this next 4-game stretch of how many of those games they're going to win. And he said they're going to win them all. And I'm thinking, okay. They've got Minnesota Sunday, Detroit, then New England, and oh gosh, I can't remember the other one. A tougher team. Might be Houston or Kansas City or something like that. But anyways, halfway through the NFL season already. Can you believe that? And the cream is rising to the top. My hat's off to 2 teams that I didn't think would be up there close, San Francisco and Green Bay. It's looking more and more like I'm going to be wearing that Packers shirt in the month of January. I don't see anybody catching them in the North unless things turn around. I would love nothing better than my Lions to do it. The Vikings are so Jekyll and Hyde. They went on the road, but they played a banged up Kansas City team. I figured they had a chance there. Should have won that one. So I don't know what to make of Minnesota. New England. Maybe they're kind of fool's gold a little bit. They're going to win that division because along with the NFC East, that is, at least Buffalo is putting up a fight. But those other 2 teams, oh my God, Miami and the Jets. But is Baltimore legit? And what about Pittsburgh? With all the injuries that they've got and they're in the hunt. Watch out. I mean, Baltimore's good. And I give it to Lamar Jackson. He's an MVP candidate right there for sure. But wow. Pittsburgh, how are they doing it at 4-4? They beat the Colts at home. Just goes to prove that Heinz Field is a tough place to play. Well, again, we'll give you our Captain Lou 6-pack challenge picks in the next hour. And we still have the playoff rankings are going to be announced. The first ones of the year, they're going to be announced at about, right in between the 2 games in the College Basketball Classic, the Champions Classic, if you will. It's coming up at, let's see if I can get a score on that game. Duke and Kansas are tied up. There's still 11 and a half minutes left to go in the first half of that game, or the second half of that game. So I think 9:30 is going to be optimistic for that game to be starting. So as soon as we get those rankings, we'll give them to you here. If we get them before we go off the air, we should have them available. Now, from next week on out, they will come on at 7 o'clock. So we'll have the rankings, and we'll pretty much go over those at the top of the show unless we've got guests lined up. So, which we will have guests lined up from here on out, just like tonight, as we're going to really start getting into the ACHA season. So we'll give you the rankings, college football rankings. Kansas is on top of Duke right now by 2, 49-47. So again, ACHA right now, 4.5 months before the Nationals in Dallas. Going to be a great time for all the teams involved. For those of you that may not be familiar with it, 5 divisions of the ACHA, 1, 2, and 3, and for the men, 2 for the women. 72 teams converge on Dallas for the national tournament every year. They go to a particular city every year, and it's going to be here before you know it. It's great hockey. The NHL cities embrace the ACHA, and it's really given them a lot of exposure, and justifiably so. Not just Division I, but 2 and 3 as well. Great hockey. I'll tell you, last year that I was able to broadcast quite a few of the games in the Division II season last year in the playoffs, and they were all very, very good. Coming down to the last minute, strategy involved with ties. Cincinnati in their game, they won one of their games in their pool play, and the other team had to pull their goalie in overtime because a tie would do them no good. Cincinnati won with a last-second goal. I mean, literally in overtime. So a lot of good games. The semifinals were fantastic. Teams that did not make it there in the beginning, such as like our next guest when he comes up, Chris Fredrickson and his Marian University team. They are, it's just so much fun to see these teams and watch them play. It is very, very good hockey. Great hockey. So I invite you to check it out. If you're in a college town And, check out some of these ACHA games. It's end to end. It's very quick hockey. There is some physicality to it, but it's what I've always been impressed is how fundamentally sound these kids all are. And I can't say it enough. So, again, it's a great brand of hockey, and love to talk about it. Love to be a part of it. We'll have some of the administrators on again throughout the year, get updates from them on how they think the season's going. But we're going to get at least 2 to 3 coaches every week here on the show as we really try to promote the ACHA brand of hockey. It's growing here in the United States. So speaking of that, let's get back to our guest line right now. And on the other end of our line is the head coach of Marian University, and that's Chris Fredrickson. Chris, hey, welcome back to the show. How's everything going with you?
Captain Lou, nice to finally talk to you. We were missing you in Grand Rapids this past weekend.
Boy, I have to apologize. I was telling my wife I saw the note on Twitter, and I thought, oh, for God's sakes, I knew I was supposed to go somewhere on Sunday because, ironically enough, we were there Saturday. My son is on the drum line for their football team. And
nice.
So it was one of those things where their game was at 4:00, and I had to bust over to the other side of Grand Rapids to call the Aquinas game at 7:30. So, yeah. And then Sunday, I was telling her, I said, gosh, we got to be doing something. And then sure enough, when I saw this, oh, man, that's what it was. Dang it. So, anyways.
That's fine. Maybe that's our good luck charm that you don't show up to our games.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, remember that when you guys make it back to nationals this year, I'll make it a point not to call your games. How's that?
There you go. Sounds good.
Well, speaking of the nationals, you got a chance to go last year. If you don't mind, let's talk about that. Experience you guys had last year. You had to qualify through regionals to get there, and I mean that was in and itself a very great. It's an awesome accomplishment. I mean, one and done as far as that goes. And then you got to go down to nationals. Talk a little bit about not only for the team but for yourself, the experience you guys had down in Dallas.
Oh, it was unbelievable. I mean, like going back to the regional tournament, it was up in Blaine, Minnesota, so it's about a 5-hour drive from us. But we got up there a day early because we didn't really know who we were going to play. We thought it was going to be one of our conference rivals, Aurora, but long story short, we won the first game against Minnesota, and then we had a quick turnaround. I think it was like 11 o'clock game on Sunday, so we practiced 6:45 in the morning, so we're kind of used to getting up early and practicing, getting going, so I benefit that to the boys. I think that's what helped us out, waking up so early in the morning for practices. And then we beat McKendree. It was a number 4 seed, number 5 seed battle. And it was a great program win to punch our first ticket to nationals. And then preparing for that 2 weeks. I mean, the whole coaching kind of job is not only coaching, but it's also, you're a travel agent, you're figuring all that out. So we were trying to figure out, are we gonna bust down, and if we bust down, I mean, we have a budget to work with. Are we gonna stop like halfway through to get a skate in so guys aren't, sitting on a bus all day? But one of our Marian University travel agents, she's worked with us when we went down to Florida Gulf Coast last year. She gave us a steal on airfare, and that was kind of like the nail in the coffin where we got to take Southwest down, and we got there about I think 2 days earlier, kind of like what everyone else does, and then we got settled in, and then the next day we had everyone gets like a not pregame, just kind of like a morning skate the day before pool starts, and then the pool play started. But it was an unbelievable experience. We started off the first game against Florida Gulf Coast. We ended up winning the whole national tournament, but we played them earlier in the year, and we lost to them the first game in overtime, and then the second game was a 2-1 battle. So we knew our first game, it was going to be a battle, and we took the lead early, and then they were just such a well-rounded team where they kind of took over, and after that, it was a battle each game after that. But Dallas Stars did a phenomenal job running it, and the ACHA did a phenomenal job running it as well.
Oh, it's what I tell everybody. the guys that I work with in my quote unquote real job, they say, my goodness, you're taking 10 days off to go to Dallas to watch hockey. I said, you don't know what it's like. It is so much fun. And it was all run first class from our end. And, just, I guess what really impressed me about it is what impresses me about the teams that go down there, and you touched on it, is, the euphoria of winning the regionals the way you did. And then the next day it's like, boom, holy cow, we've got to get all this in line to go. I mean, it's not where you can plan on it, say right now. I talked to some of the coaches that say, we got to come up with X amount of dollars. We got to find a way down there. And like you said, how do we get there? And then you got to organize everything. And man, my hat's off to you, not only you guys, but the kids too, with academics and all of that. It is just, the university working with you guys, it just makes it just that much more admirable that, how you can get all of that accomplished in such a short amount of time.
Right. Yeah. And we're lucky that Marion has our back 100%. So we didn't have to do like a GoFundMe page like some other ACHA programs. So we're very blessed to have Marion have our back with that. But yeah, like you said, hats off to the guys. I mean, the thing is we had to buy like our ticket down there, but we also had to buy our ticket coming back right away because we didn't want to like get increased fare fee, you know. So unfortunately, we only had the 3 games in pool play, but we had another 2 days down in Dallas, and hats off to my boys where they just did a phenomenal job. They didn't get in any trouble. They were doing their homework. I mean, we went down and downtown Dallas and saw the whole JFK Memorial and all that. But and then we actually went to the national championship game against I think it was Northeastern and Florida Gulf Coast, and kind of we watched the game, and the boys knew right away, like, this is what it takes, to get to that level.
Well, it just, again, congratulations on a great run last year. And, you guys, Chris, we're talking with Chris Fredrickson from Marion University here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on 12ouncesportsradio.com and TV. Off to a great start this year. Just 2 losses, or actually it was a tie and a loss. Overtime to the Sioux, who's no slouch. So you guys are off to a great start. What can you attribute to your hot start to so far this year?
No, yeah, I mean, I would say it's our freshmen. I mean, it's tough to expect freshmen to jump in right away and produce like they are. But I mean, with our returners, they're picking up where they left off last year, so that was kind of nice to see that. But I mean, bringing in 8 freshmen, 2 goalies, and 6 forwards, and I believe 3 freshmen are in our like top 6 of scoring, I think it was. So it's good to have that those freshmen contribute to the team, And and I tell my boys, I want you guys to produce as many goals and assists you want, but as long as we're getting that 2 points and that W, that's all I care about.
Well, Chris, I look at the back end, and you talked about new goalies, and I'm just my hat's off to your team. Justin Davidson, Jonathan Bateman, and William McCrate. 936 is the worst save percentage of the 3 of them, and Justin Davidson, he's worst goals against at 2.14. I mean, that's phenomenal. Your back end play, not only from the goaltending but also the defensive core, is just. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and being a goalie playing NCAA, you need to have a goalie that's steady in net. And Justin's been great for me for the past 3 years. And the boys can notice that because they can play a little more loose, in front of Justin. They can go take those chances offensively. But with Johnny and Will, 2 Canadian freshman goaltenders, actually came from the same junior league, and they battled each other for the past 2 years in playoffs and as the number 1 and the number 2 goaltender. So that's pretty much our future after this year when Justin graduates. So slowly building a rich program here, and it starts from the net. But like I said, the freshmen this year, I loved my freshman last year, but this year as well, I couldn't be more happier with them.
And, you know, I look at the front end, you touched on it a little bit, but you've got 10 players right now in double figures in points. Great to be able to do that. You know, you can, it looks like to me, you can throw out 3 to 4 lines without hesitation and make it work.
Yep. And that's the thing too. We roll pretty much 4 lines in this past weekend with Grand Valley. It was great to see our 4th line. I hate to call them the 4th line, but we call them the buzz line. But to put them against Grand Valley's number 1 line, like I have no problem with that. I have the confidence in my boys to do it, and it's good to see our 4 lines rolling, because that was our biggest downfall last year in the national tournament. Is we only had 3 lines, and that extra line makes a huge difference in the long run.
Boy, you just answered my question. I was talking with Tyler Kangas from Cincinnati a little bit earlier, and he couldn't stress more how having that depth really comes into play when, you know, you get down towards the end of the year. And boy, I tell you, getting 4 lines, it really does, because, you know, we talked about the national tournament already, but you get there and you're playing consecutive days, and, you know, again, like we talked about also with your regionals, it's just the stress of that. Man, that comes in handy.
No, it does. And I mean, I'm good friends with Carl at Grand Valley, and I mean, he's not really in charge of like the timing, but our first game on Saturday was at 10 o'clock at night, you know, and then the next day, I mean, thank God we had the daylight savings time that gave us an hour, but the next day, Sunday, puck drop was at 2:30. So it was a huge, after feeding the boys after the game, I mean, it was a quick turnaround. And I mean, that's what it takes with those 4 lines. I mean, they're not the biggest skill guys on the 4th line, but I mean, they're buzzing around, and that's where they get their name. The buzz line is they give those other 3 lines that, you know, that confidence and that team morale going, and then it gives them kind of a time off to catch their breath and get going after the next shift.
Well, Chris, I look at your schedule coming up. I know you're focused on Concordia this weekend, but I look down the road, I see you've got some quality teams coming to your barn this year as well, with Lindenwood coming up for Parents Weekend in 10 days. And then later on in the year, you've got Adrian coming up, included on senior night. And you've got DePaul and Oshkosh. They're no slouches. You've got yourself a very solid schedule ahead of you yet this year.
Yeah, no, and that's Concordia with Brendan Richards. He's been doing a great job. He's second-year coach with recruiting. Concordia is no slouch this year. They're undefeated. So we're excited to get back into conference play. But like you said with Lindenwood, I mean, that's a battle every year with them. It's been a great series with me and Gary back and forth these past 3 years. But looking at Lindenwood's roster, I think they only have like 1 freshman, you know, so that's kind of like the difference, you know. So I'll probably be in that boat in 3 years, you know, but like right now, I'm excited to play the Lindenwoods. And then, like you said, Adrian's always been a great team, NCAA wise and also ACHA wise. So we're excited to play them this year as well.
Now, your team is young. You said, what is like with the freshmen coming in? I'm always fascinated by this. What is the toughest adjustment for them coming from your style of play, the college life, as you know, that they have to make coming into play?
Yeah, I think it's just being comfortable, you know, like last year, I have to create my schedule each year. It starts with conference and then it goes out of conference. So last year, I tried to get as many games as I could, you know, and we started pretty much the first day of school, you know, so the guys that came in as freshmen, they didn't really have that kind of college life feel. You know, it was like hockey right away, and kind of seeing that this year, I decided to kind of wait. I think we started like the first week of like September, you know, or, you know, so this year our first series of games were in October, beginning of October. So the guys could come in, you know, like hang out with one another, you know, be comfortable. And then they were kind of doing captain skates here and there. And then we started ramping up practices probably 2 weeks before the season started. And then ever since then, we have a good group of guys that are gelling. But yeah, there's a little, like you said, there's a little timing difference coming from junior to the college. But It only takes probably like a week tops, for them to get used to it. But then after that, it's just getting in a groove and feeling comfortable with the team and everyone else school wise and all that.
Now, with your team this year, obviously off, as I mentioned, to a great start, a hot start that you're off to. What, on both sides of it, what has surprised you as far as that you've done really well? And then maybe on the other end, what is there a thing or two that you think the team may need to work on, just to kind of get better if that's possible?
Yeah, I think the second question, getting better, I think it's just playing. It sounds cliche, and I tell my boys all the time, but just playing 60 minutes. There's times where, like this past Saturday, we drove. We started at 9 a.m. To drive to Grand Valley, so I think we had a little bus legs. But if we play 60 minutes, it just a full complete game. That's our biggest thing right now that we need to work on, because when we do play 60 minutes fully, it's we're a great team to watch. And and what was your first question again?
No, that's fine. Attributing to the success you've had this year, what is something like just jumped out that may have surprised you that you weren't expecting to be as good at as you have been?
No, I think it's just, like I said, it's the whole comfortable thing, like this, having the weekends off. The past 2 weeks have been hard for us because we've been playing, like 2 weeks ago, we played in that WCCHA tournament, and it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5-hour drive. We didn't get back till 10 p.m. And then this past weekend, Saturday, Sunday, so like the guys, we're used to having Fridays, Saturdays, and then guys can hang out with one another, like either after the Saturday games or the Sunday games, the team camaraderie. And that's the biggest thing. I think after after this weekend, we'll have that again, where guys can see each other away from the rink. It's not always at the rink, and it's kind of a different feel. And we've been giving the guys the days off, to kind of rest, but, still like having some fun on the weekends is the biggest thing that we want to have our guys. We want you to be serious hockey players, but also in the same sense, we want you guys to have fun at the same time.
Well, and also now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to put the jinx on you, but the regionals this year are at Grand Valley. Is that right?
Yes, they are.
So now you guys got a little taste of it, but here's to hoping that you get the bye, so you don't have to worry about that this year. But that might be a little bit of an advantage for you to see the rink anyways. I've been there a few times. It's a nice facility there at Grand Valley to be able to host the regionals.
No, yeah, it's a great. That was my second time being there. My first time was my first year coaching. But I actually was talking with Carl. I asked him, like, how did you get the bid? Like, that's great. Like, we've been hosting our conference tournament at Fani the past 2 years, and I actually want to start looking into possibly having a regional tournament in Fond du Lac, because it sounds like Carl said it's not that hard to do. And but no, like you said, it's hopefully we don't get there. It's a long drive for us, about 6 hours. But once again, our Central Division, especially with Sioux College joining our, like with Aquinas leaving, that was, great team, but good to see them leave. But now we have Sioux